It's like, you can make a birth plan, but, like Mike Tyson said, everybody got a plan until they get punched in the face. A birth plan is the baby's gonna come when the baby's gonna come, and you just gotta kind of rock.
Hi, Rahsaan.
Hi, Cody.
I have been following your beautiful wife on social media. And when she announced her pregnancy, I was so thrilled. I mean, she was, so you got to feed off that because everybody's not, excited in that moment, but she was.
Right.
So, will you tell me a little bit about the two of you, how long you've been together, and how many kids you have?
We have been together, I think, almost 15 or 16 years now. We got married in 2011, had our first son, Orion, in 2014. And then since then, we both knew we wanted another child, so we were working on it together, for some time.
It's the best way to work on it. That's the best way.
Yeah, you got to put in the work if you want to get results. So, so we worked on it together, and then we had some missteps in the process. There was some miscarriages, which I think my wife speaks about openly, which were some down moments. And then we got lucky in the pandemic, in April. Now we have Orion, and we have Nadia, who was born on January 8th, 2021.
So talk me through how, there's so many questions here, right? It's a pandemic. We are Black people, so we are already, discussing a high level of anxiety around pregnancy. Your beautiful wife also mentioned that she was in her late 30s while she was pregnant, and they call that a geriatric pregnancy, even though that's also very outdated. So there's there can be a lot of negativity around some of that stuff, right? Some of those challenges. How were you guys feeling? And 1 month into this pandemic, like we having a baby?
Well, I mean, we were definitely, I think she was immediately excited. I was excited as well, but we also, it's hard, I think, when you go through the process of A, having a successful pregnancy, and then B, having a number of what you could classify them as unsuccessful, but pregnancies that don't come full term. You go through a kind of a cycle of excitement, deep disappointment, excitement, deep disappointment. So I think we're both kind of in a mindset of, okay, this is a good thing, this is something that we wanted, but let's try to kind of play this even keel and see where it goes. And the further and further along it got, then the more and more of a realistic excitement I could feel around it. So, Julie struggled in those early, the first trimester with what they call morning sickness, but it was really intense for her. And so it was, what can I do to try to alleviate some of what she's feeling? Can I go to the store to get this? Can I bring water to the back? Whatever it is that I can do to try to make it less stressful, less painful for her is what I want to do throughout.
So as far as the pregnancy, right? 1 month into this pandemic, you find out what sort of adjustments or even changes in your expectations did you have to make to account for the changes in hospitals and what was going on there?
We knew that, right? There were all these things that were going on in hospitals, and people were not being able to be in the room with the spouse when the spouse was delivering babies. And, I think my wife, when she heard those things, she ran ahead to the time when we were going to have the child and assuming that the context was going to be the same. But I think the things that did alleviate her stress around it were as we got closer and closer to the due date, and as she went to doctor's appointments, it looked more and more like I was going to be able to be in the room and be with her, and that, I think that gave her a sense of solace. But I know she did struggle early on with the feeling that, it felt like she was really doing this alone, because in our prior pregnancy, for all the different appointments that you go to, and throughout this process, I was literally, I think, only allowed to go to one doctor's appointment with her, and they were doing, I think, the measurements of the baby to make sure it was growing at the right rates, and that was the only one I was able to go to.
So you mentioned how it made her feel. How did it make you feel that you couldn't be there?
It was a little bit sad that I couldn't go to those things. I would like to be able to see the child progressing, and it's part of us feeling close to each other while we're doing this process, and not being able to go was definitely disappointing.
Will you say a little bit more about what you feel your role is as the expectant father, and how, if at all, it changed from your first child to your second?
I can speak to, things that ran through my head when I found out that I was gonna have a baby, right? And the first time that I found that I was gonna have a baby, it was like a switch flipped in my head, and it was like, okay, up until this point, you've been responsible for you, and then you actively chose to be in a life partnership with my wife, but she's really a capable person, and like if something happened to me, she could take care of herself. But now I'm going to be in a situation where we're bringing a life into the world which I'm fully and totally responsible for. So as a man, it was like, okay, so what do we have to do? Like, what needs to happen around the house? Like, what have I done in terms of my, financial setups to be ready for my kid to come? Like, are we in a good place to bring this kid into the world and be able to support them? So those are the things that really ran through my mind and stayed on my mind while, as an expectant father. Also, I'm a black male in America. So, like, how am I going to raise a human being that I feel like is intelligent, is capable, is proud, but also is self-aware? So as a dad, those were the things that were on my mind as an expectant father.
The first time. And so, right, or both probably.
Both times, yeah, both times.
But with the pregnancy itself and wanting to, do you feel like it's one of your responsibilities to play an active role in that 9-month period? And what did that look like for you, if there's anything to add? Because you did already mention, making sure that whatever she needed, she had to feel better, right? What does that look like as those 9 months carry on? And especially this past year where friends and family were far away, where you couldn't go to doctor's visits. Did you consciously do anything to ensure her comfort throughout?
The first time around, I was able to go and go to doctor's appointments, do all those different things. We went to like a natural birthing class that we took every Sunday for 3 hours. So we went to those, we practiced, we came in with a whole birth plan. We did everything the first time. This time around, none of those things were really an option. So I felt like we also had a 5-6-year-old running around our house who needed to do his virtual school, to eat and do all those things. So I felt like, part of my support throughout this pregnancy was being the super hands-on guy with him, making all his meals, making sure he was doing all his classes,
right,
making sure he was doing everything that needed to be done so he was good, so that was another thing that she didn't have to worry about.
Did you all have a birth plan this time?
This time we did not have a birth plan because we saw how, the level of efficacy of actually making a birth plan. It's like, you can make a birth plan, but, like Mike Tyson said, everybody got a plan until they get punched in the face. A birth plan is the baby's gonna come when the baby's gonna come, and you just gotta kind of rock with what's happening. So we knew, if possible, she wanted to labor at home for a little while, and then we just wanted to get into the hospital. And we have an African American female doctor who is so that in itself just deals with a lot of the issues that could cause a great deal of anxiety.
That put you at ease. That put you both at ease.
Yeah, we found her towards the end of our first pregnancy, because we had been dealing with other doctors who were doing what we felt like was a lot of fear mongering. Your baby's this big, and we might need to go in and just do C-sections and do all this stuff. It had nothing to do with what we wanted to do. So we switched doctors really late in that first process, and we found our doctor, and since then she's been excellent. She was awesome.
That's bomb. That's wonderful. That's not everybody's story.
No, it's not. I mean, I think it's one of the benefits of living in a major metropolitan area where you can find what works for you, and where in other places you might not be able to do that.
Well, is there anything else that you want to say or think that we should know about either your experience specifically this last year, preparing to bring your second son into the world? This is your space.
It was a different process, even in the birthing, because we had that birth plan the first time. She went into labor naturally, so actively, you mean like the active birth process was different. When we were in the hospital the first time, she was going through labor without the epidural. I was doing the squeeze the hips to relieve the pressure during the contractions, right? The walking around, the bouncing on the ball, getting ice chips, playing music. I was doing a lot of things. It was like a workout. I'm an athlete. I used to be an athlete. I played football. Julie was a track star, so it was like a really physically intense process that first time. It was maybe like a 24-hour process. And this time around, it was like go in, they induced her, she went into labor, it got the epidural. So I felt like, it almost felt like I cheated because I didn't really have to do anything. I just had to chill, and then it was like push time, so I had to stand up there and do my part where I'm in her ear like, you got this, babe. You could do this, you got this, right? I'm doing that part. I put the little music on in the background. I had all like Pandora jazz station going to give it some ambiance, make it chiller. And then it was epidural, it was push, and then she pushed out the baby. And I cut the cord, which I don't think I remember doing last time. And then it was, she was exhausted, so just, I love you, you did it. Like, here's the baby, we're happy, and we're chilling.
Would you say, so in your words, that men, fathers, can play a role in pregnancy and childbirth to better affect the outcomes?
Absolutely. I mean, I think our role, as I've talked about earlier, is really to be as supportive as possible. So it's doing the physical things you can to relieve stress for your wife, also whatever mental things you can to relieve stress. If there's another child or children involved, being more active, proactive, so that your wife can have the opportunity to actually, just rest. There's a multitude of things that I think you can do to be supportive, to make sure that your wife doesn't feel like she's alone in the process.
How do you prioritize your mental health and any anxiety that you had, either pregnancy related or pandemic related, but how did you manage and check in with yourself on that this last year?
I have a real faith, I think, in myself. Like, I'm gonna be okay. I'm intelligent, I'm capable, I can figure out a way. Like I found her, we met each other, we talked for like a strong hour and a half, and it was one of those conversations where, I like to do some writing earlier, but I've always thought, it's like, I always have a conversation with myself in my head about, hey, should I do this? Should I do that? What do I think about this? What do I think about that? So there's always like a dual conversation that was happening in my head. And it was, when I talked to her, I was like, oh, this is the other voice. So like, it's gonna work. We're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
So there's the worries, but then there's the, hey, we got this. We're gonna be okay. So I guess that's the best answer I got.
Awesome. You did it. She did it, but you did it. Y'all did it.